I wrote this piece as my final paper for my first-year writing seminar, Literature into Film, offered by Professor Rachel Tucholsky in the English department. Throughout this course, we read numerous iconic literary works and subsequently watched their film adaptations to examine the differences between the two medias and the transformations that occur when verbal language is translated into visual language. While my primary academic interests have generally been in the natural and behavioral sciences, I enrolled in this course because I've always had a special appreciation for works of literature and film, especially for the more technical and cinematographic elements of the latter. Going into the process of writing the final paper, I initially considered writing a comparative piece between William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet and John Madden's 1998 loose film adaptation Shakespeare in Love. However, as I reflected on previous class discussions, I found myself gravitating towards an interesting conversation about Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now, a loose film adaptation of Joseph Conrad's novel Heart of Darkness. Unlike the novel, Coppola elected to include a scene where soldiers are ordered to surf on the beach while they attacked a Vietnamese village. While in the past I probably would have considered the scene a minuscule element of the overall plot, I instead saw it as an exemplification of the film's social criticisms of American intervention and imperialistic efforts during the Vietnam War. Similarly, another film we watched, entitled Otelo Burning, simultaneously utilized surfing as a tool to expose the disparities between the racial communities in South Africa during apartheid. As a result, I changed the topic of my essay and sought to examine how the starkly distinct portrayals of surfing in these two very different films were able to similarly epitomize the director's social criticisms of disparity and male hubris within the respective time periods. In preparation for writing this paper, I decided to rewatch all of the scenes in both films in which surfing was portrayed. While I recognized that each movie evoked different emotions and attitudes towards surfing itself, I was curious to see how specific photographic techniques such as camera angle and lighting contributed to the process. As I watched Otelo Burning, I found that the low sweeping angles of the surfers riding the waves coupled with the bright natural lighting of the sun elicited a similar reverie for the craft as that held by the fellow members of Otelo's township. However, surfing also exposed the economic disparities between the racial communities and highlighted the destructive effects of Monmouth's jealousy and hubris on his relationship with Otelo and the society at large. On the other hand, the high-angled bird's-eye view shots of surfers in Apocalypse Now, coupled with the smoke of the incendiary bombs, made me feel disgusted by Colonel Kilgore's disregard for the innocent, resourceless Vietnamese villagers and his willingness to endanger the lives of his soldiers. This highlighted the absurdity of surfing being present in a war zone and alienated me from Kilgore's ideology. I was amazed by how both films were able to illustrate such similar criticisms, but did so through such different portrayals of surfing and by evoking different emotions from their audiences. By rewatching these scenes, my appreciation of the films dramatically changed from my initial impressions, something I had not experienced when writing my previous two papers primarily based on literary works. While I went back to the novels and short stories to find quotes that enhanced my analysis, I did not always take the same time to immerse myself in the worlds of these pieces and truly understand the author's intentions. This close analysis made me realize the true importance of revisiting the source material and taking time to contemplate the implications of the author's choices, something that I plan on applying in future papers regarding both film and literature. Since this was my final paper, I also sought to address previous critiques my professor had provided over the course of the semester. One main note I received was that my writing tended to be quite verbose, which sometimes compromised the overall structure of my papers and failed to highlight some of my greater arguments. For this reason, my primary goal with this paper was to achieve brevity. While initially drafting the paper, I found myself falling in the same traps, becoming engrossed in including small details in my analysis that served to only be accessory to my greater arguments. However, now more aware of my tics as a writer, as my professor likes to call them, I found myself revisiting my sentence and paragraph structures and modifying them to showcase my arguments, rather than letting them be lost in irrelevant details. I also realized through this experience that including more paragraphs served to be my greatest ally, rather than an enemy. Instead of opting for fewer, longer paragraphs, I shifted my writing style by including a greater amount of shorter, more focused paragraphs that highlighted different facets of my argument and facilitated the flow of my paper from point to point. Through this small yet effective modification in my writing style, I was able to better organize my own thoughts towards the topic and felt like I could more effectively articulate my arguments in a more focused and concise fashion. This experience, while at times difficult, was very valuable in my growth as a writer. Although the topic and composition of this paper were challenging, they allowed me to become more organized and facilitated a greater appreciation for the works I was analyzing. As I continued to write future papers throughout my academic career at Vanderbilt, I plan on embracing the modifications to my writing process that I made, from preliminary preparation to general sentence and paragraph structure, in order to create more organized and concise essays that effectively articulate my arguments. In addition, this experience allowed me to better recognize and value the intricate technical elements of films that I will continue to examine in future film classes, as well as in casual settings. I am very grateful for this experience and will embrace the lessons and values I learned from it in my future academic endeavors, which may now include a minor in cinema and media arts.